has been the effect of rising interest rates on the rental market and, of course, those decreasing house prices?
So it's important to say that rent is not set by landlords' costs. So the rate rises aren't being passed on directly to renters, which is a story that sometimes gets told. But what is happening is that landlords might be testing the market for the first time in a little while. They might be seeing how much they can get. And they're finding that the desperation of people trying to find a home at the moment is very high, and that's allowing really significant rent increases.
And this fundamentally comes down as well, Leo, to the lack of supply that we see right across the housing spectrum.
Exactly, particularly the lack of supply of genuinely affordable homes for people on lower incomes who are really struggling to make sure that they can actually keep a roof over their heads. But there's a shortage of supply of affordable, available properties is fundamentally the problem here. And it's a problem because we haven't made sure that that supply is happening, whether it's through the private market or where the private market won't deliver, where government stepping in to fill those gaps.
What size of rental increases have people been seeing?
You know, we've been hearing of people facing hundreds of dollars a week increases, which is $5,000, $10,000 a year out of the budget. And so these are really significant impacts on people's ability to then cover food, healthcare, other important essentials of life. And it's having a really significant impact. It's not only the money, because it's also, if you're served a rent increase notice that you can't afford, you lose your home. And so now you're in the market with hundreds of other people trying to find a new place to live. And so then we're seeing people having to make sacrifices on the quality, the location of their places, and even not being able to secure a home even after an eviction notice has expired. So it's a really dire situation for people at the moment. And it's impacting people now, even in the inner city of inner city of Sydney, where rents did fall a little bit. They're still very high, but they did fall fairly substantially due to COVID, and they're now spiking back up again. And so we've seen increases even there of $100, $150 a week, and that's really biting people who had moved into the inner city when it was more affordable and are now being pushed out again.
We're actually, just to talk to your point there about Sydney, we're hearing reports of people facing massive rent hikes, particularly there. When they ask to negotiate, then being served an eviction notice, it does actually illustrate that there is actually a relative lack of protection for renters in Australia.
Yeah, fundamentally, every rent increase notice comes with a sort of implied threat that if you don't want to pay this rent increase, we can always serve you an eviction notice, or you can leave. And what's happening now more and more is that is being made explicit, and we're seeing people who are being handed a rent increase notice and an eviction notice and told to pick one. And so that puts a lot of pressure on a person to just accept the rent increase notice, rather than trying to negotiate or looking at what the market might truly bear. So it's one of the areas, housing as an essential service, where government regulation is not aimed at making sure that the community has access to this really essential service, this essential need for everyone to stay safe, healthy and sheltered. And instead, it's aimed at keeping prices high. So we don't do this in energy, we don't do this in healthcare. We intervene where the system isn't working.
Just really briefly, can I ask you, housing is a very difficult subject because it is regulated through 3 levels of government and multiple organisations. The federal government's just set up a National Housing Supply and Affordability Council. Do you hold hope that that is actually going to be able to start to address these issues?
So it's really important that that council has the right terms of reference and actually makes sure that it is taking note of what's happening in the private rental market. I think the concern at the moment is that it might fundamentally only look at the supply of social housing without having an eye on the private rental market and what changes need to happen there. But it's very important that the federal government take a leadership role here, because they are funding the states and territories to provide housing and homelessness services, and it would be a shame to provide that funding while allowing the states to maintain systems that promote homelessness rather than prevent it.
Okay, Leo Patterson-Ross from the New South Wales Tenant Union, thanks so much for coming in for us this morning.
Absolutely.